Hey, deserving listeners, season 4, Love is Blind. Let's see what comes out of my face as I watch.
I had a date earlier today. I didn't tell Pooh, but I had a date with Josh. It's like, I just don't want to be with nobody but you. And I just couldn't end it because I just felt like I like Josh. And I like Marshall, but Marshall told me he was in love with me, and I didn't even know what to say.
Okay, so we're learning who it was. And yeah, it's a tough position to be in if you're Jackie. You're just like, oh my God, I feel a connection with two people. What do I do? One of these, or maybe both, could be a potential soulmate for me. I mean, that's why people are on the show. That's what amps up the intensity of the show, because I think these people are legit saying, I want to meet my partner for the rest of my life. And people have done that on the show. It doesn't have that history of fakeness that other shows will around this. This is a real situation. And so their heart is really in it. And for her, her heart was really in it for Josh and for Marshall. And yeah, tough position. So when Marshall's expressing love, she's like, I can't go on anymore without telling you that there's this other guy, and I do have a connection with this other guy. So yeah, I've been confused. Maybe a lot of you were yelling at me because I was under the impression that Jackie was saying he already left, but apparently he hasn't left. He just was threatening to leave, or was wanting to leave, or planning on leaving.
What? My friend is hurting.
Oh my God. Oh, I didn't even see you there. Do you have a headache, or is it men?
Okay, so I'm looking for the charitable explanation or conceptualization about Micah and Irina. And we'll rewind this a little bit, because there's a chance, or at least a factor in their behavior, is due to traumas, their only way of coping is to laugh. People will do this. You'll even see it in some more innocent situations where it happens in therapy all the time. And it happens at my university as well. A student will be talking about something very difficult, either involving them or another person, or a client will be talking about having been through horrific trauma. I won't talk about specifics, but you can imagine. And as a therapist, I've heard it all, right? I mean, not all stories, but the whole range. And people, because of what they've been through, and because of the shame and the denial and the ostracization and the lack of support, can develop a defense of being flippant about it, laughing about it, to soften the blow to the other person. That's another reason why people will laugh sometimes. They will laugh as a way of making it so that you don't have to worry about it. Like a more mundane example would just, like, let's say you're going through tremendous pain for one reason or another that day, and you come to work, and your friend at work is just like, how's it going? And you're just like, oh, well, I mean, my body's falling apart, so I don't know, there's that. So you feel compelled to tell the truth about it, but you also don't want to really be serious about it because you don't want to burden the other person. And of course, that's often a false impression or a false notion that other people would be burdened by it. Hopefully you can legit talk about what you're going through by being congruent with your feelings and actually saying, yeah, it's a rough day, I'm in a lot of pain, I just want to crawl into a hole and cry the rest of the day, but I don't know what to do, so I'm feeling pretty bad. That's not burdening the other person. And of course, if you're the person, you're not burdened by that. You can just express empathy and care and sympathy, and you don't have to necessarily do anything about it. You don't have to fix it. It's not your problem. So often that's all people want, is to be heard, understood, and emotionally held for a little bit of time where they can be honest and receive some support. So, but people will do that, right? And for some people, when they are faced with difficulty, they don't know what else to do, and they will transfer, and Freud observed this actually back in the day, there are defense mechanisms and that will transmute the original emotion into a different emotion that is easier to handle, or will express the content of the difficulty without identifying with the emotion because it's too much for the person. So yeah, I'm in tremendous pain, so I feel like I have to talk about that because that's all I can think about right now. But I also can't deal with the reality of that right now and the reality of having to tell you that right now. So I'm just going to laugh about it. I'm going to change it from pain and despair and demoralization to a joke. And of course, there are functional ways of doing that as well, helpful, healthy ways. But if you're always doing that, and if you're forced to do that as a child, then you might do it in very inappropriate ways. It's one of the classic assessment dimensions that we will assess as clinicians is congruency of emotion. And it can indicate a variety of different things, of course, different mental illnesses, different disorders, but it can also indicate this defense. And so I'll rewind it, but you see Irina right away, at first, is seemingly really being there for Jackie, which I thought was interesting, and I was glad to see it, that Irina seemingly at least is exhibiting someone that has a heart, because I do believe that Irina and Micah do have hearts and do care. So I was like, okay, good, we're seeing Micah care. And then as soon as she sees Micah come in, Irina instantly laughs, very inappropriately. As Jackie, she's not just kind of going through something. I mean, she's in an emotional crisis right now. So to laugh about it is to, in fact, I just did a little bit if you didn't just hear that. I do that sometimes, actually. I'm doing it right now, I guess. So I don't know what to think about that. Why do I do it? I'll think about that later. But I'm doing it again. Anyway. So with Irina, let's rewind it. And then Micah mirrors Irina's laughter and laughs as well. So maybe for the two of them, it's overwhelming. The stakes, the emotions, the difficulties. And so they're just used to laughing. And our culture encourages this. There's a lot of this in media, online, within social groups, as a way of just trying to get through things. Just, let's just laugh about it because what else can you do? But let's rewind.
And I like Marshall, but Marshall told me he was in love with me, and I didn't even know what to say.
What?
My friend is hurting.
Oh my God. Oh, I didn't even see you there. Do you have a headache or is it men?
So she said, my friend is hurting. It's if you took away the laughter and the smiling, you would just have a normal, supportive friend. But the laughter and the giggling and the smiling is incongruent. Hopefully it's incongruent. I mean, there's another possibility that I think people would assume, which could be true, but possible, but it's not likely, but it's possible, that Irina and Micah literally don't have empathy for one reason or another. There's a lot of paths to lack or impaired empathy. You can literally just not have empathy. You are antisocial or a psychopath or sadistic or something. There's those disorders, which we have studied a lot and I've talked a lot about. But there's a lot of disorders and personality traits and characterological disorders that result in impaired empathy. You have the capacity to care and have altruism and to feel other people's pain and not want them to go through pain. But because of your defenses, your traumas, your cognitive deficit, you don't notice when other people are going through things, and thus your empathy isn't engaged. And if you have that ongoing, then you don't have a very robust sense of empathy or sympathy or care. So it's possible one or both of them are in this category. There's another possibility that they're just editing in the moments where it looks this way, and maybe there are other moments where they're actually more human. I don't know. But it is pretty consistent and pretty pronounced. So Irina laughs. Micah, that's all she sees. She doesn't even see Jackie being there, which just makes sense because she's low and behind the couch thing. So she comes around, she's like, oh my God, I didn't see you. So she's primed by Irina to think, oh, we're in a light laughter situation. And I'm thinking, okay, well, she's, that's what she's reflecting. Micah can't do anything about what she was primed for by Irina. But then as soon as she sees Jackie, you would think that Micah would, and of course, that is not the trend with Micah, that Micah would switch and be, oh, you're going through something. You would just hope maybe she'll do that, but let's rewind and you can just see that sequence.
It's like, I just don't want to be with nobody but you. And I just couldn't end it because I just felt...
So you see Irina right there? I mean, at least it's hard to know what's going on in someone's heart. It could just be a game she's playing. I'm going to sneeze. For Irina, who knows what's really going on in her heart? But I can only go off what I see, and what I see exhibited is someone who cares. If I was going through something and I saw someone looking, especially, really leaning into me, I think she's in contact with her legs. There's a lot of warmth and a lot of care, listening, eye contact, attention, attunement. that looks like someone who really cares. So is that a game? Is she just manipulating? Or is this the true her? Is it just the side of her? Do Micah and Irina play off of each other? Because as soon as Micah comes in, Irina's demeanor changes. I don't know, but let's watch the sequence.
Like, I like Josh. I like Marshall, but Marshall told me he was in love with me, and I didn't even know what to say.
What?
My friend is hurting.
Oh my God. Oh, I didn't even see you there.
Yeah, so we know what Jackie's going through, but Micah wouldn't. So Irina's laughing, and she's like, comes over. And so the question she asks, is it a headache or is it boy stuff? That's all. But then when she hears, Micah continues to smirk, I think. Let's watch.
Do you have a headache or is it men?
I just feel so bad that I hurt him.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if Micah, that look that Micah and Irina have in that moment, a knowing we're having fun or we have a connection or this is how we connect or we feel alone and isolated. I mean, another element of this that I've talked about, but maybe not this angle, is that, for a lot of us, if we're in a completely new situation, we don't know a single one of these people, you're stuck in basically a locked compound with 29 other people, and then you have all the producers, the camera people, and you're in this weird space, it would be threatening and it would be a strange situation, it'd be scary. And you might resort to some odd ways of trying to establish some kind of safety with someone else, a little inside sort of thing, us against the world. I don't know, but there's something weird. And I wonder if Irina and Micah, if it was just one of them, if they would have also exhibited this behavior, or is there something about their relationship? People will say it's codependent. It's not codependency. It's, if you want to say they're overly dependent on each other, just say that. Don't say codependency. It's a completely different thing. People think codependent means you're both dependent on each other. It's not what it means. Enmeshment might be another word you might say. You know what I mean? It's almost like this, they're feeding off of each other in a way that you would do if you were trying to get safe. It's also possible that one or the other feels beholden to the other. Like maybe Irina is more of the jokey person, and so Micah feels like she has to play along. I mean, I've been in relationships like that before where I can think of a few just off the top of my head. I mean, not currently, but in the past, where I feel like I don't want to react this way in this situation, but I feel like if I don't, the other person would receive it as a rejection, and I don't want that to happen, so I'll sort of manufacture this reaction. I was like, oh yeah, oh boy, when I threaten maybe what that might look like to other people. It's been a while since I've been in a situation like that, but so one or the other might be more the ringleader and the other person feels like they have to comply. In this moment, it would seem like Irina is trying to comply with Micah, but in the past, it seemed like Micah was trying, and maybe they're mistaking each other, or I don't know, something very strange is going on. And I guess I'll just continue to take in data and speculate.
I just feel so bad that I hurt him.
It's crazy. You didn't do anything wrong. You are
I had to use the
doing what
restroom.
you're supposed to be doing.
No.
Like shit's popping up.
Wait.
What's wrong with you, Micah and Irina? Put that on a t-shirt. That would sell. I don't know. I'm recording this the weekend that this comes out. So by the time this episode airs, it'll be, I don't know, a week later or something. So I don't know what people are saying, but I just can't imagine that Micah and Irina would not be noticeable. Of course, people notice. So you could sell it. Feel free to use this idea, because of course I would never sell it, because that would be inappropriate and uncool, and that's not my way. But I could see someone else selling a shirt like that. If you want to be trolly and uncool with a merchandise thing, just say, what is wrong with you, comma, Micah and Irina. So yeah, I mean, what's wrong with you? You're laughing. What's the purpose? What are you trying to get out of that? Ridiculing her now for a situation you don't even know anything about. And contrast it with Irina, I think, having spent a number of minutes and moments quietly and intently and altruistically taking care of Jackie as she goes through this. And then instantly now, Irina just completely flips and is like, oh my God, this is hilarious. Look how stupid she is. It's like a two-person mini cult where they're coercing each other into this, or Irina's coerced into Irina's, or Irina's coerced into Micah's. I don't know. It's just, but watch that shift that Irina goes through.
And I just couldn't end it because I just felt.
Just look at that face. Completely different. Now, again, it's all manipulation, maybe. I don't think so. But it's such a 180. As soon as she walks through the door, Micah, Irina, her whole face changes. How do you fake that? What's going on? What's happening there? There's so many other options. You know, we could imagine that Irina could smirk a little bit like, but some attention, or there's a mode that Irina's in right now, how quickly that goes. And so was this all fake? I don't know.
I didn't even know what to say.
What?
My friend is hurting.
Oh my God. Oh, I didn't even see you there. Do you have a headache or is it men?
I just feel so bad that I hurt him.
It's just such a stark change, so quick, and just bizarre. There are behaviors on this show and others that I watch where it's not healthy, it's not great, it's immoral, it's wrong, so to speak. It's hurtful, abusive maybe. But I often have some speculation, some conceptualization, hypotheses as to where it comes from. I can't fathom what this would be. The temptation is to say they're both psychopaths. They have no heart, they have no empathy, they don't care, they're callous, they're cruel. People like that exist. I've treated people like this, and of course we know some famous people, Ted Bundy, these kinds of people, Charlie Manson. They exist. We know about them. I've studied them. I've treated them. Is it that? Another possibility that I mentioned earlier was arrested development. It's not a diagnosis, but it's a well understood thing that for some people, maturity isn't something that, we just think, oh, you're 18, you're mature, or you're 25, you're mature. People mature at different rates. Maybe these two, for whatever reason, have just matured at a far slower rate. Remember, there's a bell curve. So you could have someone who is 10 years old and they have some markers of maturity of a 20-year-old. You could also have a 10-year-old that has some markers of maturity that puts them at a 2-year-old. And the same goes for people who are 25 years old. Some people might have markers of maturity that put them at the top end at the age of, I think we max out at maturity ratings on average in 30s, 40s. So you could have someone who's 25 who is as mature as they're ever going to be, like at the age of 35. And you could have someone at 25 who has the maturity of a 13-year-old. So it happens, of course. There are outliers. There's a lot of variability. There's a standard deviation, and so you're going to see that. So is that what we're seeing? I don't know. It's possible. There are other reasons why people could have what I would call arrested development. People who have traumas at a certain age will be stuck often, particularly when they're under stress. They will revert, they will regress. This is well observed. It's hard to study this scientifically because what do we mean by regression? What do we mean by exhibiting a younger version of the self? It's hard to scientifically measure that and code that. But a model of thinking, and it stands to scrutiny when I actually will look at people, including myself. A common example that's really easy to recognize is if you have kids, young kids, and you have say a 7-year-old, and under stress when they're nervous or they're cranky or something, you will hear your 7-year-old talk like they did when they were 4. There's certain ways that kids will talk, syntax, vocabulary, tone of voice. And you'll notice that your 7-year-old under stress, or when they're trying to get something out of you, they will use similar words and syntax that is not of their maturity. It's regressing back. You're like, oh, you're 4 years old. And you notice that. Another common experience that people will have, or at least express, is that when we're very upset, we will literally talk about wanting to crawl into a fetal position, which is, of course, related to the womb. We want to return to the safety of the womb where we don't have to do anything. We can be taken care of. We can literally be fed through a tube, and we're just carried around in the warmness of our parent. And so we want to return there. And it feels good to do that. Not always, but for some. So for people, all of us really, we have the potential for regression. And there's a lot of stress involved in this situation. So the two of them might be regressing. I mean, one speculation, of course, it's not a strong one, but we regress to places where we feel safe. So if we feel unsafe now, at least in our head, we feel like we felt more safe at a different portion of time in our life, a different era, and we will return there. Or there'll be elements of that previous life that we want to gain back, like when fetal position, we want to go back to a time when, like I said earlier. So you can imagine that for some people, their place that they go to when they're under stress is when they were in middle school, because they didn't have responsibility, there was less expectations, fewer expectations. Maybe it was before their parents got divorced or before things got bad in their life, before they had to grow up and experience all the troubles of adulthood. And so for them, their safe place is literally being 12 years old and thinking like a 12-year-old and acting like a 12-year-old. And so that's what's happening. I mean, the more I say it out loud and the way that it looks, because again, Irina was acting like a mature adult, taking care of Jackie. The two of them walk in and boom, they feed off of each other's defense or something. They want to be each other's defense. They don't want to abandon the other person. They regress. It's when we regress, it feels good to regress with other people. It also feels good to regress if we can push someone in to take care of us. Like a healthy way to regress that some of you might be able to relate to is you are stressed out, you're very sad or something, and you will put your head on the lap of your partner while your partner, rubs your back or runs their hands through your hair, says comforting things to you. That is reminiscent of what it was like when we were very, very young and being taken care of by our caregivers, hopefully. And so that is a regression that is healthy. And it enriches us, it brings us to safety and security, and then we can recover and move on with life. For these two, they might feel like I need to be there for her. And so I need to be in this 12-year-old regressive state so that I don't put them at risk. Also, I don't want us to lose out on this connection that we have, and this is how we have connected. That could also be another factor, is that at some point early on in their stress and regressive defenses, they both establish like, okay, we have our language, we have our thing, our clique. This is what we do to establish that we are loyal and together and different. We have our little in-group here and everyone's on the out-group. And so this is what we're going to do. We're going to laugh at everything. We're going to be above it all, and we're going to be jokey and silly. And so when Micah comes in, Irina could feel like, okay, in fact, one way to think about it, again, I'm speculating on speculation. Irina could feel like, okay, Micah's not in the room. I'm free to be myself. I can be more fluid or flexible in how I am emotionally. And so she's acting normally and appropriately to Jackie, taking care of her. Then Micah walks in, and Irina instantly is like, oh crap, I've been cheating on Micah in a sense, not really cheating, but emotionally friendship cheating, because Micah seeing me now bonding with this other person, is that going to threaten my closeness or our thing that we have? And she's the one person that I have in this place or something, or I value this relationship a lot. And so I need to switch to our mode that we understand. And cults will do this. It's not a cult, but cults will do this, that they will establish routines and belief systems and ceremonies, ways of dressing, ways of talking that are particular to that group, and either as an effect or on purpose to alienate those people from everyone else. Because when you alienate everyone else, the out-group, the in-group becomes stronger. It's well researched that when you have strong in-group, out-group identities and conflicts, you are much more dependent on each other, you're much more loyal to each other, dedicated, and you feel safer with each other. And plus you need each other to defend yourself against the out-group. So that could be another element here. I mean, the more and more I talk about it, the more and more this sounds satisfying to me. Of course, I don't know, but it would be one explanation or a set of areas to explore in terms of a conceptualization as to why we would see this. I just have a hard time landing on the simplistic notion that the two of them are psychopaths. It's possible, but it's not likely. It's possible, but it's not likely. I don't know. What do you think? Is any of this making sense? If someone can please summarize what I'm saying, some of you are smarter than me and can concisely put it together in a comment below. I'd love to see it, to see if I'm coming across like I'm making any sense.
It's crazy.
You didn't do anything wrong. You are
How'd you use the
doing what
restroom?
you're supposed to be doing.
Like shit's popping off.
Wait.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just I have to go to the bathroom and I think it's code for, I got to save you or come over here. Let's go talk over here. Okay, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.